Hello, this is Dave Sugarbaker, and this is the 16th day of April 23. And I have a short little piece of scripture from way in the back in the New Testament. This is from 1 John 4. We love because he first loved us. Those who say, I love God, and hate their brothers and sisters are liars. For those who do not love a brother or sister whom they have seen cannot love God whom they have not seen. The commandment we have from him is this: those who love God must love their brothers and sisters also. I saw an interview the other day with a politician who represented what I feel are the worst characteristics of our present political situation. This person confidently announced that their opponents were evil, calculating, hurtful people who would bring calamity on children and cute furry animals if they're not immediately removed from office. The hate is so intense, it feels like they're calling for their opponents to be shot rather than removed from office at the next election. This politician belonged to what I would call the Chicken Little school of political discourse. The sky is falling, and how do I know? I just know. And all my friends know as well. And are you going to be part of the problem, or are you going to be part of the solution? This American politician started with hate and went in search of convincing reasons why everybody else ought to jump on the hate wagon. When you start with hate, the world is full of reasons to back up your antipathy. I think there are two motives behind the hate. There's fear, and there's fundraising. Let's take the fear first. If I am afraid, it always helps to have someone outside myself to blame it on. One of my exercises with couples when they're having a disagreement is to ask them to watch where the finger is pointing. And they're usually pointing at that other person. And they're saying things like, you are making me mad. This is accompanied by things like, you always, or you never. Always with the pointing finger, accusing, blaming. And the bottom line is, we want it to be somebody else's fault when we're angry or afraid. Some supposedly wise person pointed out that when we point a finger at somebody else, there are 3 other fingers that are pointing back at us. I encourage my angry couples to turn the finger pointing around, and I ask them to point that finger at themselves. That's a really hard thing to do, instead of at their partner, and to use a statement that began with I, rather than you always and you never. That resulted in some of the most honest and intimate communication that I've ever witnessed. When the finger is pointed at one's self instead of the other, I heard things like, when you said that, I felt my old fears of abandonment. Or, I'm mad, but I'm mad because I don't want you to see me as stupid, wrong, or crazy. And I'm afraid you do. Behind the hate is fear. The fear is usually something that comes from me, not someone out there someplace else. But it's something we don't want to own up to. It's much easier to say he or they made me afraid or made me hate them. Now, I said that hate coming out of this politician was a product of fear and fundraising. So let's talk about fundraising for a minute. Two of the greatest motivators in public speaking are fear and guilt. Preachers have used these two to fill offering plates for decades, if not centuries. Remember from your high school textbooks on colonial literature, Jonathan Edwards had a sermon entitled "Sinners in the Hand of an Angry God." Boy, that was guilt and fear. And some, or perhaps all of our politicians have discovered that there's money to be made by tickling the fears of their constituents, and then identifying a boogeyman out there to blame for all of those fears. We feel the fear then, but we don't have to take personal responsibility for our fear-based reactions. It leaves us free from guilt and free to hate if we can point to them out there that are making us angry or afraid. Politicians collect money from those who have been excused from responsibility for their hate. There's no fear, there's no guilt. It's all on those hated people from the other tribe. Whatever happens to them, they have brought it on themselves by being so wrong. They're the ones who've caused it all. Jesus had an interesting take on loving your enemies. This is what he said in the Sermon on the Mount. You have heard that it was said to those of ancient times, you shall not murder. Or, whoever murders shall be liable to judgment. But I say to you that if you are angry with a brother or sister, you will be liable for judgment. And if you insult a brother or sister, you will be liable to the council. And if you say, you fool, you will be liable to the hell of fire. So when you are offering your gift at the altar, if you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go first be reconciled to your brother and sister, and then come and offer your gift. The writer of the letter to James says, those that say, I love God, and hate their brothers or sisters are liars. For those who do not love a brother or sister whom they have seen cannot love God whom they have not seen. Now, God bless you. If you find value in this, I'd appreciate it if you'd pass it along. Take care.